If you've been watching this show, or my channel for a long time, it's no surprise for me to say that I prefer enjoying classic games on the original hardware when I can. But if I can be real for a moment, not everyone is in the position to be able to enjoy games this way. Whether it's because of lack of space or maybe just no access to the hardware, it's certainly something which has become harder for most enthusiasts over the last few years. But not only that, as I've also seen far too many people who are into playing old video games that don't really carry the curiosity to explore the medium in the way which drives someone like myself. So how else can we solve all those problems but through the joys of retro games collections, of course. As nice as a concept they are in principle, the thing is though, many simply don't give the context as to why you should give a damn about these old games, as many of them simply will dump an unwary player into a set of games and leave them to their own devices. It gets worse because they'll tend to skimp on the instructions as well, so for anyone diving into them for the first time, well, they'll certainly be on their own trying to work out the tricks of how to actually play these games. Which is where Digital Eclipse come into the picture with Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration, a package which builds upon their recent releases to serve as the definitive example of what such a compilation should be moving forward. Now I bet you're thinking, it's just yet another collection of old Atari games, with many of the games we've seen included in other collections. So why should we care this time? Well, that comes down to three big reasons. Firstly, we've got the museum, where many retro games collections choose to hide their historical material behind additional menus or as unlockable rewards for playing the games. It's treated quite differently here. In fact, it's front and center, serving as the focus once you start the collection up. It's framed as 5 separate exhibits, each offering a timeline view of events, working your way through a carefully curated set of items. I love the assortment of what gets featured here. You'll find marquee and cover art to various games, alongside advertising flyers and marketing material. There's also development notes and interviews too. Now, those interviews might not be with all the figures involved, but there are enough included to let you appreciate the impact their work has had over the years. Of course, with the highs come the lows, and there's plenty of those covered here as well, especially in the tracks covering the later years. These interviews all feature some excellent editing. I'm sure by now everyone's seen at least one of those snippets over social media, but it highlights the stories and the culture of the time pretty darn well, in my book at least. You may be tempted to rush your way through these museum sections, but honestly, it's what I feel you should savour by working your way through them at a slower pace. Go through a track, watch some videos, look at some adverts, and appreciate how high the quality of the scanned material is. When you're done with that, then sure, try out some of the games. Now some of these may be ones you'll just be done with after a few scant minutes of play, but thanks to how they're integrated with the museum interface, you'll be taken back to right where you started once you exit. It really provides some serious context in the framing of how these games exist when you come to think about it. And by contextualizing them in ways which we've not really seen in collections before, it makes the museum an important tentpole with Atari 50. It's just that a games collection is about the games, of course, and so that's the second reason that this pack is rather special. You'll find just over 100 of them included here, close to half represent Atari's biggest success, that most wonderful of wood grain clad consoles, the Atari 2600. Another quarter is dedicated to their arcade games, ranging from Pong to iRobot, their last one released before being split up in the aftermath of the US video game crash. But what about the rest? Those are split up between the other platforms included. The 8-bit home computers, the handheld Lynx, plus the 5200, 7800, and Jaguar consoles. I truly appreciate the inclusion of these new platforms here, though it is a bit disappointing to see that the number of titles included for each of them is rather low. I guess it feels like that because it's the first time we've seen some of these platforms featured in a collection like this since their original releases, it would be a bit more special to see more of their games there. But alas, that's just not the case at all. I also need to note that not every game included here is a classic, or is worth playing beyond a cursory few minutes at best. But that's okay, because I believe part of the journey in a collection like this is to discover those which click for you and strike your curiosity. And honestly, we're all going to have different picks on what is worth returning to. That's certainly been the joy of this collection for me. Getting into games like Cybermorph, one I'd all but written off based on the opinions of some other comically caustic critics. But oh gosh, this one is so down my alley, flaws and all. I mean, seriously, I've been having a genuine blast playing it so far. Now, of course, there are plenty of diamonds in the rough included here, and, more importantly, some absolute classics. Ones which I'm genuinely grateful are now available to a wider audience. Games like Tempest 2000. I mean, just look at it in action. Those visuals, the particle effects, that shattering text, the glory of Meltovision, and of course, that wonderful 90s rave soundtrack. Oh, so glorious an experience. What's great is, to play Tempest 2000 now, you no longer need to sell a kidney in order to afford an Atari Jaguar and a copy of it. All you need is like 50 Australian dollars, or whatever that is in your local currency. And boom, you've got a copy of Atari 50. And that's it. That's all you need to enjoy one of the greatest blasters to be released in the early 90s, let alone on the Atari Jaguar. Now, if that doesn't make a good deal, then I don't know what a genuinely good deal is anymore. Of course, collections like this are great for representing games as they are, but it's also a chance to give them some enhancements for the modern age, which is best exemplified with Star Raiders. In its enhanced mode, the game now displays prompts about actions, whether you're docking with starbases, making sure you know what you're doing, but it also adds visual representations of your ship's system status, so it helps give you situational awareness at a glance, without having to wait for that status text to update on screen. But the real work here has gone into mapping the controls. Taking advantage of a modern gamepad, it really makes it feel like a far more modern experience than should you have to play it with simulating the way the actual 5200 controller worked. Of course, Star Raiders was part of the last Atari collection, Atari Vault or Flashback Classics 3, and it was even more cumbersome to play than on a real 5200 or Atari 8-bit computer. The reworking of the controls done by Digital Eclipse, honestly, and this kind of sounds like heresy, I guess, but it makes it probably my favourite way to play Star Raiders. And if I want to play it, unless I've got the Atari 8-bit set up and ready to go, I'm probably just going to grab my Switch and play Star Raiders here. It works so much more conveniently. Whilst that's the big example of these control modernisations, there's also other minor tweaks for games which rely on paddles or spinners or trackballs. Those games support the touchscreen. I'm playing on the Switch here, and you get touchscreen support when you're handheld. If you're on a PlayStation, you can use the touchpad of the DualShock 4 or DualSense, and you've got that to emulate those controls. And PC owners, I believe, have mouse support. It's only Xbox owners who are left out of the lurch here. When you give these controls a bit of tuning, it really works quite well. Not up to the standards of actually using a real paddle or spinner or trackball, but it's enough to be able to enjoy them in a more convenient fashion. It's all absolutely good stuff in my book, and I think it goes a long way to letting modern players feel comfortable in trying these games out without feeling completely lost. Finally, we've got the modern games Digital Eclipse have created. The pack of games here are limited from enhancements to existing games to reinventions of classics or new creations serving as tribute to games of yore. Once again, the modern experiences of playing these games, the more modern control setups and structures and whatnot, really goes a long way to making revisiting these ideas in a more modern friendly sense. It helps them be appreciated by a modern audience who might then understand the circumstances and go back to playing the original versions. But seriously, I've got to give a shout out to Vector Sector, because that has been one seriously engaging game. And challenging, but really engaging. It throws off the vibes of those early Vector arcade games. Your Asteroids as your Tempests, your Lunar Landers and whatnot, and it gives you a proper modern challenge in an old school way. It's, like I said, it's just a great example of connecting modern players to these games and using these reimagined works as a bit of a bridge to the classic games. And so, think about it. You take a bunch of arcade, computer and console hits and misses. You framed them in a well-curated museum environment showing the highs and lows of Atari's history, and you really have quite a special package here. I've got to be honest, Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, has been living rent-free inside my head ever since I first installed it. Whether it's revisiting well-loved classics, sinking my teeth into games I didn't really know, or really just enjoying the journey of learning about Atari's ups and downs. It really makes an essential experience to play here, to learn, to enjoy, and maybe learn about some new things that you might want to check out further. I mean, if you're just here for the nostalgia vibes, it absolutely delivers on that regard. Reliving the culture through the museum section offers a way to get those cheap vibes. You can check out the games you remember, maybe check out some others you are curious about or not familiar with, and hopefully discover some classics in the process. For those who are more history focused, the museum is absolutely the centerpiece here. You'll be spending a lot of time just revisiting those exhibits, watching those ads and pieces, and learning about the people behind the games. Now, it's not the most comprehensive documentation that you may want, and I feel it's a bit lacking in spots, particularly around the computers, but I still learned plenty of things in my time exploring it. Finally though, if you're just wanting some cool old games to play, well, there's plenty to explore here. Not just those modern reimagined versions, but plenty of the classics as well. The modern controls approach in how they work goes a long way to making them more playable in this day and age, and that's really an important thing to help keep them alive. Regardless of how you want to approach it, for me, Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, is ever so important for defining what a classic games collection should be moving forward. I'm hoping the highly positive buzz it's received elsewhere leads to more games companies considering collections like this for other developers, for other publishers, and other platforms. There is a wide variety of gaming history that hasn't really been touched on in this way, and I hope that more consider it going forward. So, if only we can help keep gaming's past as visible as we do for other mediums. Now, before I go, I'm going to highlight a few games that made the collection for me. Some I've touched upon previously, and others I've not. But I hope they're ones you'll consider trying out should you decide to buy into Atari 50. Presuming you haven't already, of course. And with those picks out of the way, it's time for me to wind this one up and just say thank you all very much for watching.